The Kashmir tangle has always eluded solution and even cannot be cooled down for just a moment. The Kashmir political uncertainty has inherited right from 1947, whether it is the conspiracies or rigging of elections, armed struggle, exodus, a collusion of political power. To join with us, the values one of the prominent voice and the political activist, Mr. Gowhar Geelani. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you, sir. If we talk about the political situation of Kashmir, how would you see the current political scenario of Kashmir?
Thank you very much for having me in your show. First of all, I'm not a political activist, I'm a political analyst, and I'm a journalist, anyway, be that as it may. Right now the political, as far as the political landscape in Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, it's very volatile, it's very uncertain, as it has been over the last 7 decades. While you introduced this program that has been there since 1947, I would go back as 1931. So conditions have been, moving from. There have been many ebbs and flows, but right now it's very, very. Nobody knows what's going to happen because there is, the J&K Assembly is in suspended animation, and there's no government. There's a governor's rule. And many things are there which everybody is aware. There's Article 35A and everything is going on about it, and so there are a lot of anxieties right now in Kashmir.
So have you find something different state have done last decades, or we can say after the death of the Sheikh Abdullah?
I have always been saying, even in my write-ups, that what India, Pakistan and Jammu and Kashmir actually is craving for is a statesman. But what we are seeing, unfortunately, is stuntsmen. There are many stuntsmen who give very rhetorical statements. They give very, very, there's a lot of rhetoric, but there's lack of action on the ground. So there is lack of political will to resolve this dispute, so that to allow people of Jammu and Kashmir, not people of Jammu and Kashmir, but also entire subcontinent can live in peace and tranquility and certainty, political certainty. But because of this problem and because of the egos involved of the two nation states, and I think there's lack of leadership in Islamabad, in Delhi, and also in Srinagar.
So if we talk about the Jammu and Kashmir, which has now become the Jammu versus Kashmir, only the people becomes the scapegoats. So who is responsible for doing this?
I think when BJP took when the Bharatiya Janata Party ascended to power in Delhi, I think the region, the two regions, Jammu and Kashmir, got further divided not only on regional lines but unfortunately also sometimes on religious lines. There used to be some tensions earlier also, but it was never that grave. If we take out the 1947 massacre, barring that massacre in which 237,000 people were killed and persecuted and also forced to migrate. But then there was also some kind of there was some also cultural confluence and some harmony between all the three regions of Jammu and Kashmir. But unfortunately, during the last 4 years, you have seen also during the Amarnath Yatra 2008 agitation. But I think there are some positives as well, and the positive is that at least on Article 35A there have been several voices from Jammu. Even some lawyers have come out in open, and some politicians from the BJP and also National Conference, Mr. Rana, have come out in open and spoken about Article 35A in tune with the voices from the valley. So there are tensions, but there are also some,
there is also some perceptions on the political alienation between Jammu and Kashmir. Can you say it is because of the alliance of the BJP and PDP?
It would be, in my view, it would be premature to say that it's only because of the BJP and PDP alliance, that happened in 2015. I think there are several other factors as well. It has been going on for several decades. Even on the development front, people from Jammu will complain we don't get enough funds, and people from the Kashmir Valley will say everything goes to Jammu. Everything has gone to Jammu in the last 30 years. Ladakhis say we have nothing to do with the struggle of Kashmiris, and Pir Panjal and Chenab Valley, they have there's some saying in that region that the people of Jammu do not accept us and the people of Kashmir do not respect us. So there is this dichotomy always there, but there have been also voices from the Pir Panjal and from the Chenab Valley and from the Jammu region and Kargil in Ladakh where they have said things in tune with the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
So if we talk about the young generations of Jammu and Kashmir, can we say their political environment makes their life difficult?
I think, yeah, I mean, in any kind of a political uncertainty, it's not only about Kashmir, it's true about Palestine, it's true about other areas, Congo, it's wherever there have been conflicts, Kosovo, Serbia, or East Timor, Indonesia, wherever there is political conflict and wherever the solution is elusive, the first casualty are the women and also the youth of that place. So that's why you see that apart from these political problems, there are also problems about when there's a Kashmiri youth or youth from Jammu, when he or she is a postgraduate, there are lack of opportunities also for them. So this because of this political conflict, there are also other problems linked with this problem.
So you are connected with masses, with local peoples of Kashmir through your blogs or columns, or we can say through social media. How do you find their life serving in conflict zone is something different?
I know there are both sides to it. There are people who, despite conflict situations, do well because sometimes conflict can also act as a catalyst for human evolution, for good or for bad. And there are instances when people, despite hardships, do very well in science, do very well in literature, do very well in politics and other areas. But there are also, generally people suffer. There is a lot of suffering, there's a lot of pain, and there is the contention, the main contention sometimes in the conflict area can also be the narrative of victimhood. But I'm glad that in Kashmir, at least, people are also, being very resilient and very brave and trying to do different things and keeping themselves busy and not letting the situation, which is, of course, out of hand at, several instances. But to say that everything is hunky-dory, everything is normal, but there are several abnormal things which are abnormal in Europe or abnormal in the West, which are now considered normal in Kashmir, like the ban on the internet, like the daily curfews, restrictions, showing your identity card to a policeman or an army man. So when you travel from south to Srinagar, I'm sure you must have been frisked many times and and your card would have been checked. But you go along, you still do your work. So that is the kind of resilience that the people of Kashmir and also people from Jammu have shown. When they have done their struggles and when the civil society of Jammu has made its voice heard.
So what are your views on the regional political parties? Have they done their limited politics?
I always say when we talk among our friends and our acquaintances, we always say that generally you will feel that everybody in Kashmir is talking about politics, but equally true is the fact that actually people are also detached from politics because nobody takes this space very seriously because of the lack of sanctity that has been there for the last 7 decades. The manner in which, as you introduced the program, the elections have been rigged, the promises have been broken, and the trust. There's so much of trust deficit between that political class, which is referred to as mainstream. There is the National Conference, there is the PDP or the traditional Congress or the BJP now, and then the other side of the divide, that the Hurriyat Conference or the JKLF. There is generally a youth of Kashmir, a woman or a girl, and a boy and a man from Kashmir is disillusioned with this kind of political narrative that is there because there is a lot of talking, but lack of action on the ground.
So if we talk about the young generation and the scholars who join the armed struggle, so can we say this is the outcome of they lose the hope on the mainstream political parties or whether it is the separatist parties?
I have a different take on this. When people say that a lot of scholars and postdoctoral scholars are joining militancy or the armed struggle, I think in the 90s that was the case also. It's not that in the 90s there were people less educated who went and joined the militancy. I have, as a child, we have seen how they would write columns and they would write powerful pieces in a paper then which was very famous, Chatan. And that would sell like hotcakes. and those who batted for Pakistan, who wanted Kashmir's merger with Pakistan, or those who wanted independent Kashmir, or those who wanted a solution within the ambits of Indian constitution, like going back to 1953. There was a lot of debate those days. There was this healthy debate going on between people who had actually taken up arms, but despite that, they were using their pen to put forward their views. It's not that then the people who joined were illiterate or less educated, and now the people are more educated. I think this is a society, mix of a society. Sometimes there can be people from different social strata. They can belong to any class of society.
Is this anger today among the young generation is different from the 90s?
Yes, I think, yeah. The vocabulary is very different. For us, it was A for apple, B for boy, C for cricket, and for today's generation, I think it's A for Azadi, B for Burhan, and C for curfew. So the vocabulary is different, and when we were young, we were children in the 90s, mid-90s, late 90s, and the first reaction was that our hand would go here, whether we have our card with us, and there was this heartbeat will go faster and faster, and the first reaction was to run. And now it's total opposite. People run towards the people who are with holding guns. So this is totally different. Yes, the anger is more palpable and it's more visible. And I think it's not just anger. I think it is expression of political aspiration. Because many political initiatives have failed, I think that's why the space has gone to something else.
So if you talk about the ideological difference among the Kashmiri leaders, some with Azadi, some with Pakistan, some with India, and some with Islamization. So who see the inspirations of the people?
I think, in any society, I don't think there is any society in the world where you will have a homogeneous structure. Like I have lived in Germany, I have lived in London, in the United Kingdom. Not everybody will have the same opinion. Not everybody will be on the same page. I think that's a very democratic behavior that people espouse their political views. Somebody who bats for a merger with Pakistan or wants an independent secular Jammu and Kashmir, or anyone who wants a political solution within the ambits of Indian constitution, like National Conference wants autonomy or PDP bats for self-rule. I think this is democratization, and this is also a good sign, healthy sign where people espouse their political views, and the good thing about all of this, whether there is a constituency for Pakistan or Azadi or other people autonomy, the broader, if I take some takeaway, my takeaway from this is that actually everybody is pro-resolution. Everybody wants a solution. Whatever that solution could be, that could be debated. But nobody is saying that it's a settled issue. Those who want autonomy want a solution. Those who want self-rule want a solution. Those who want Azadi want a solution. Those who want to merge with Pakistan or merge with India, everybody is saying that status quo is not acceptable to us.
So what about the UN resolutions? How the people of Jammu and Kashmir kind of relief from there?
It's not about relief. I think it's about the historicity and context. It is because whenever you say something, there is always a context. And with respect to Kashmir, the context is the promise of plebiscite made by independent India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. And I think also there have been 18 United Nations resolutions on Kashmir issue. That's a context, but you have seen even the midwives saying that if there is a tripartite dialogue where Delhi, Srinagar and Islamabad sit together, and if there is some negotiated settlement, people have also talked about the Musharraf's 4-point formula when, if you have read the book Neither Hawks Nor Doves by Khurshid Mahmood Kasuri. So how that solution was developing. So there are things which have been talked about, but the United Nations resolutions form the bedrock of the struggle that is being led by the pro-Azadi camp. So I think that's a context.
So if you talk about the role of the India, have you found any kind of sincerity from New Delhi to resolve this issue?
It's a very good question, but I think if you ask 100 Kashmiris, maybe all of them would say that Delhi has always been insincere. It has not been sincere. It has not even invested in the so-called democracy that it claims. It has not done justice to its own promises. The way the elections have been rigged, the manner in which it only invested in 2 families of Kashmir, Abdullahs and the Muftis, and the manner in which it also discredited the institutions of dialogue. by first inviting Hurriyat and then humiliating Hurriyat. So that kind of behavior from Delhi, that sometimes the policy is carrot and stick policy, and sometimes the policy is the militaristic, sometimes it's 4Ds, denialism and defeat the enemy, and then the Doval doctrine is being talked about. So I think a lot of problems are in Delhi, but I think it is also unfair to only blame Delhi. I think there are also problems with Islamabad. There are also problems in the leadership in Srinagar.
What about the role of Pakistan? Because as we talk about the India, accused them to support their armed struggle. What is your view on it?
I mean, this is no secret. Everybody knows that in the 90s, the armed struggle was partially and fully, to some extent, supported by Pakistan. But right now, what is happening on the ground, even Indian analysts, many analysts and defense analysts in India have said that what the kind of uprising that is there in South Kashmir and North Kashmir and in parts of Central Kashmir and in Srinagar, it's very local and it's very indigenous, because a boy who is doing his postgraduate degree or engineering degree goes out, joins militants and snatches a rifle, and there is no money coming from anywhere, there is no weapon coming from anywhere. So there are instances where infiltration also happens, but if you see the total graph of militancy from all the reports that are there from the crime branch and from the police, and they say out of 300 or 250 militants, mostly they are local boys and who have no training, who do not cross the line of control, who don't even know how to fire bullets from the gun, but they still pick this option because there is some problem on the ground.
The new government is likely to form in Pakistan, as their PM candidate Mr. Imran Khan had said in his first speech that we are ready to talk with India on Kashmir issue. So, but India doesn't reply yet. What is wrong?
I think you will see a shift in some time to come, because there are stated positions when Pakistan will say that Kashmir is our jugular vein, and India will say it's an integral part. But when this all's for what you call for your respective constituencies, that's called the rhetoric and the stated positions and posturing. But when they get together, when the foreign secretaries meet and the foreign ministers meet, then there is the real talking. Then both sides are willing to show some flexibility. Then there is a lot of talking going on the real issue, how things can move forward. I think there have been right noises made from the legendary cricketer turned politician Imran Khan, and the way he has invited his best friends who were playing with him during his playing days, Navjot Singh Sidhu, Sunil Gavaskar and Kapil Dev, and the manner in which he said that if we walk one step towards India, if India walks one step towards us, we are willing to take two steps. I think the speech made by Narendra Modi yesterday was also, there were some noises, right noises, when he said bullets can't resolve Kashmir. So I think you will, because diplomatic language is different, political rhetoric is different. What you say on TV, what they say on TV, or what they say during these public speeches. But when they get together, when diplomats sit across the table, then there is real talking. How there are many agreements that are done. How to move forward towards investments, how to do this thing and that thing, how to release fishermen, how to move on Kashmir, what could be the possible CBMs, Kashmir-centric confidence building measures. I think then the real talking happens.
So current issue, Article 35 is, can we say that India wants territory, or we can say they also want the people of Jammu and Kashmir?
35A, I think there's a lot of confusion about 35A spread by some people. I think there needs to be clarity vis-a-vis what 35A is. The roots are in 1927. Everybody talks about 1954 presidential order, but what is 35A? It essentially means is, what it is all about is that it defines who is the permanent resident of Jammu and Kashmir. So if you, Mudassir Rishi or Mr. Rais, whether to establish, when you have to establish whether he and you and I are permanent residents of Jammu and Kashmir, that is what it was all about in 19... And interestingly, at that point in time, it were the Kashmiri Pandits who fought for this PRC, permanent resident certificate laws. When they said Kashmir is for Kashmiris, there was a lot of influence from Punjabis into Kashmir. So they wanted to stop that inflow of Punjabis into Kashmir. And then the Maharaja gave in and this law was established. And then in 1954 the same thing happened. The J&K legislature was given powers to define the permanent residents of Jammu and Kashmir. And once those residents are defined, then there are some special rights to them, that they can buy immovable property, and they have right to education, they have right to employment and right to scholarships. So that is what this law is all about. And what the JKLF, for example, Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, or what the Hurriyat Conference are saying, are that this 35A, any tinkering with this will affect the possible right to self-determination whenever that happens, because until that we will not allow anyone to change the disputed nature of Jammu and Kashmir, and we will not allow anyone to fiddle with whatever position we have constitutionally or otherwise. And because if there is a demographic threat, and these threats are not also, these are not what you call fantasies. This has happened. The demographic change, if you go and see the census in 1947, the 40s census, the population of Muslims in Jammu region was more than 60%. And after the massacre of, what happened after the Poonch rebellion, after 237,000 Muslims were butchered and massacred, that's a report by the Spectator and Times London. And then the opposite happened, because a lot of migration took place and people went to the other side, and then the Muslim majority Jammu was turned into Muslim minority Jammu. So the demographic change can happen. It's not something, it's not a fantasy, but it will not happen in 1 day or 1 year or 2 years. But that is, those are the fears and apprehensions of a common Kashmiri, which the Hurriyat is also trying to portray. So that is what the whole 35A is all about. But then there are counter arguments from somebody in Delhi who would say that if a Kashmiri can buy land in Lajpat Nagar or in Mumbai or in Calcutta, why can't a Delhiite or someone from Kolkata or a Mumbaiker buy land and property in Kashmir? But that's a skewed argument. That's not a right kind of argument, primarily because Delhi is not disputed. Mumbai is not disputed, Calcutta is not disputed, but this entire region is disputed between two nation states, and both are nuclear powers. So this analogy does not work.
Can you find some kind of solution in immediate future?
I mean, it's not for me. I'm a journalist. I'm a writer. I analyze things. It's not for me to give solutions. But what I do is that I analyze what, for example, the NC would say or PDP would say, the Hurriyat stake. So my job is to put it together and give it some sense in my write-ups, that what they are saying and what it could essentially mean. So my job is to analyze. So I don't think, unfortunately, as I said earlier also, that in Delhi and in Islamabad we have stuntsmen, and this region needs a statesman. And when Srinagar will produce a statesman, when Delhi will produce a statesman, when Islamabad will produce a statesman, we'll see a solution, because there's a political will that will resolve Kashmir. It's not an intractable problem. Many disputes which are more complex than Kashmir have been resolved with political will. I think India needs to shed its arrogance of power, and also show some flexibility and allow a third-party mediation, like what happened in the Northern Ireland. How Good Friday Agreement worked in Northern Ireland, it can also work here. But for that, both Islamabad and New Delhi have to show magnanimity and also some statesmanlike.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.